Tonight, an urgent call for safety measures and a local police force as Canada's Public Safety Minister visits James Smith Cree Nation. And on the International Day for the Eradication of Poverty, we speak with some Saskatchewan residents trying to get by with very little.
It's expensive to be poor.
Plus, a new arena, pool, library, and more. The City of Regina is looking for your feedback on how to shape the future of downtown.
This is CBC Saskatchewan News.
It's Monday, October 17th. CBC Saskatchewan News starts right now. Hello, and thanks for joining us. Sam McKaig is away this week. Canada's Public Safety Minister says he will never forget his visit to Saskatchewan today. Marco Mendicino was visiting James Smith Cree Nation to speak with those affected by last month's mass stabbing. Kendall Latimer has more on this visit and what may come from it.
Earlier today, Federal Public Safety Minister Marco Mendicino traveled to James Smith Cree Nation, meeting with family members of people killed during the mass stabbing. He says it was an emotional meeting, one that he won't ever forget.
This is a community that remains awash in grief and trauma and loss, but there's also perseverance and real strength.
The minister also met with local leadership who say the trauma has been far-reaching.
It's going to take some time for our membership to heal.
They also need to feel safe. Locals have been patrolling the area, acting as security. But there are limits to what they can do, especially when it comes to addressing violence. The local chiefs say the community needs its own police force with officers stationed on site.
We know our own territory here. We know the back trails, the fields. You know, when you bring in somebody different, and if there's an incident here and they don't know our area well enough, then we could be losing time, crucial time.
Chief Wally Burns says in order to staff a local police force in the future, they will look to their youth now.
We have over 400 students in our school, and it's well over capacity, but the thing about it is that we got to make sure that we plant a seed with them in regards to having our own policing.
But even if those seeds are planted, it could be years before that vision becomes a reality. And the chiefs say immediate help is needed to deal with ongoing issues involving addictions, gangs, and violence.
Time is of the essence. We call upon you, Mr. Minister, to help find that quick solutions, the ones that are needed right away.
The federal minister says he hears the need for short and long-term solutions. Mendicino says the federal government does want to create legislation that will make Indigenous-led policing an essential service in Canada, one that has stable funding. But he says before that can happen, more consultation is needed with Indigenous communities. Kendall Latimer, CBC News, James Smith Cree Nation.
Mendicino also visited Prince Albert this afternoon to sign an agreement with the Prince Albert Grand Council and the province. Ottawa has agreed to work with both partners to improve safety for local First Nations. The goal is to find Indigenous-led solutions. Today is the International Day for the Eradication of Poverty. Sadly, struggling to make ends meet is all too common for Saskatchewan residents. A recent survey by the University of Regina indicates 1 in 5 people in our province lives in poverty. With more on their frustration and fears, here's Pratush Dayal.
Elder Lorraine Matichek and her family survive on social assistance, but barely. Each month brings difficult choices.
Either I'm going to pay the rent, leave it, or buy food, or get food for the house, or pay the other bills. It's such a scramble, eh?
Come to think of which utility to pay.
Together, they receive close to $1,900 a month from the Saskatchewan Income Support program, but more than half goes into rent. Matichek says groceries cost her $600 a month due to inflation and their special dietary needs. When she ran short of money, the power was cut off for a month, leaving them without hot water and heat. Now, they face the risk of homelessness.
I certainly don't want to be put out on the street and living in a tent. I don't even want my grandchildren to come to grandma and visit me in a tent. You know, that's not right. It's not the nature of it. It's abusive, neglect, it's unhealthy.
And potentially dangerous heading into winter. According to a recent University of Regina study, 1 in 4 children live in poverty in Saskatchewan, the second highest rate in the country. The Minister of Social Services, Jean Makowski, says Saskatchewan has some of the most generous income support programs in the country, but anti-poverty advocates do not agree. Peter Gilmer from the Anti-Poverty Ministry says the rate for people with disabilities hasn't increased in 7 years.
People on the SIS program don't even make it halfway up to the poverty line. They're living well below half of the poverty line. People on the SID program are still living thousands of dollars below the poverty line per year.
Saskatoon resident Karen Swan suffers from several physical and psychological conditions. She receives disability benefits. Swan says her doctor told her to eat nutritious food, but she can't afford to.
It's expensive to be poor. And to go places that I could find food that's good, like I can't go to the local Safeway because they have higher prices. I have to go beyond.
Swan shops at discount stores instead. She says public transport gives her anxiety, so she borrows a car. But fuel is expensive. Both Swan and Matichak would like politicians and policymakers to try to live off income support for a month to see how nearly impossible it truly is. Pratish Dayal, CBC News, Saskatoon.
With the cost of food soaring, Canada's largest grocer is freezing prices on its no-name products for 3 months. It remains to be seen whether this step will be enough to appease frustrated shoppers and whether other companies will follow suit. Nisha Patel has more.
At the grocery store, shoppers are looking for relief.
I used to spend like $40 a week, and then it ended up becoming like $70 a week.
Grocery, it costs a lot for us. And frankly speaking, it jeopardizes our monthly budget.
I'm having a hard time living and keeping up with inflation. And yeah, it's a nightmare.
Now Loblaw says while it can't control the prices set by suppliers,
food prices go up, no-name prices won't. Guaranteed.
It can set prices for its no-name food products and will freeze them until the end of January. Food bills are up almost 11% in a year, and with major grocery chains seeing profits increase, they've become a target for consumer frustration. But some experts say there's no evidence of price gouging.
The price increases that we see at the grocery store are reflecting higher costs of producing those goods and services.
This economist took a look at the numbers, and while corporate profits overall are at record highs, profit margins have held steady.
Rising profits is not a contributor to inflation. The higher profits that we're seeing are largely driven by high commodity prices and high energy, oil and gas prices in particular.
But others say companies are still coming out on top.
Corporations are doing much more than just passing on higher costs. They are taking advantage of this particular moment with all the disruptions after the pandemic to fatten their own profit margins.
So while questions over profits and prices continue, Loblaw's price freeze may cool some of the heated debate. While grocers in other countries have made similar moves, no word yet on whether Loblaw's Canadian competitors will follow suit. Nisha Patel, CBC News, Toronto.
Atakakup Cree Nation plans to build an urgent care centre in Saskatoon. The province signed a deal with the First Nation. Together, they will determine a location and come up with a design. The First Nation will own the facility and lease it to the Saskatchewan Health Authority. It's the Health Authority that will then staff and operate the centre.
Emergency room. There are recognized delays in the emergency room in Saskatoon at the University Hospital as well as St. Paul's and sometimes as well as at City Hospital. This is a huge step in taking that, not just on the physical ailments that are presented, but the mental health and addictions. There's going to be a separate entrance for mental health and addictions to make sure that they have the dignity that they need to be able to come in and
The 24/7 care centre is expected to relieve pressure from emergency departments. It will deal with urgent but non-life-threatening concerns. An urgent care centre is already under construction in Regina. Public consultations are underway about proposals for major facilities that could shape Regina's downtown. And as Alexander Kwan reports, discussions on day one have already revealed people's passion about their city's future.
Today marked the first day of public meetings about 5 major projects that, if passed, could help shape the future of downtown Regina. They include a new aquatics facility, a replacement for the Brandt Centre, a baseball stadium, an outdoor synthetic soccer field, and the modernization of the Central Library. The goal is to develop some or all of the projects in tandem. It's all being overseen by the Catalyst Committee, a group that got its name from the transformational nature of the projects, all of which are intended to drive growth, development, and private funding to Regina. The conversations were billed as consultations, a chance to hear what the public wants.
Well, you ain't seen nothing yet compared to what's going to be coming if they try this.
On Monday, the committee got an earful from advocates questioning why the city needs a new arena when there's been little action dealing with homelessness. One of the co-chairs says that building an arena will not solve homelessness, but that it could help provide a bigger tax base for the city to fund more programs.
The Catalyst Committee has a relatively specific mandate in terms of focusing on a handful of projects, but at no point should we ever neglect the fact that there are greater social issues in our community like there are in any community.
Other attendees voiced concern about the very quick timetable put out by the committee. There are only 8 consultation meetings, and all are scheduled for this week, while a final report must be sent to council by the end of this year.
I suppose if we had all the time in the world, we'd take more time. But the reality is we've got facilities that are end of life. We know that we're going to have to do something about them.
The replacement for the Brandt Centre is still shrouded in some secrecy, with potential downtown locations deemed confidential. They could require buying up and demolishing buildings.
We want to rejuvenate the area, and also we know that private investment, if they know what the plan is, will come forward and help us build our downtown.
Consultations will be held throughout the week at Mosaic Stadium, while residents who are unable to attend in person can also provide feedback on the city's website. Alexander Kwan, CBC News, Regina.
I absolutely adore Halloween, so it's exciting to see decorations go up around Regina, and warm fall temperatures have certainly made for nice decorating days. Stay with us. We'll be back after the break. For months, we've been reporting on a shortage of healthcare workers across the country. Here in Saskatchewan, finding a family physician is increasingly difficult. To shed some light on the situation, I'm joined by Dr. Lawrence Lowe. Dr. Lowe is the new CEO and Executive Director of the College of Family Physicians of Canada. Thanks for being here.
Thanks so much for having me.
So first off, what are family physicians telling you about the state of healthcare in this country? What are they seeing?
One of the biggest challenges after the COVID-19 pandemic's acute phase has passed through is that many people have really been at this for 2.5 years. A lot of family physicians are burnt out. A lot of family physicians have also retired, which means that those that are left behind are still facing numerous challenges, just dealing with a lot of, as life has returned to normal, so have the problems. A lot of administrative burdens, a lot of folks with more diseases and diseases that have had delayed diagnoses that are finally just starting to come to light. So, I think family physicians are trying their best, but they are dwindling in overall numbers and also facing more insurmountable pressures.
Now, one obvious, though far from easy solution that comes out of what you just said is to get more doctors, but you can only get through medical school so quickly. Is there any sort of other solution, a short-term remedy to this problem, and who would be responsible for that in your eyes?
Well, right now, I think there's a lot of different solutions that need to be put into place. So yes, getting more doctors and working through the mid and long term to ensure that we are attracting more people into family medicine is going to be critical. As we know, one of the challenges is that remuneration and the practice environment for family medicine continues to be really challenging. And that also means that many of the best and brightest are not necessarily choosing family medicine when it is really a really wonderful and critical specialty, the bedrock of our healthcare system. In the short term, though, what we really need is relief for physicians where they stand right now. There are many forms, for example, that aren't covered by provincial insurance. Is there some way to rationalize those administrative burdens, all the administrative work that family doctors do, because they essentially run clinics as small practices? The other thing is locum support. So trying to find an opportunity for just some family doctors to get some help seeing patients, meeting those needs of those patients while they can actually take some time off and reflect and regenerate, especially after what has been a grueling 2.5 years.
So there's some great points you made on the side of the doctors. What advice would you have for people who need consistent medical care and they simply can't find it at the moment?
Well, I think at this point in time, it is really important to continue searching for family doctors as we work through some of these challenges, and hopefully as some of these remedies come in, that will help to free up the time of physicians. We do know as well in the middle to long term that moving towards bigger practice models, team-based models where family doctors work in multidisciplinary teams with other providers, that will help some of the folks that actually need some of their more regular, consistent care to be met, to be able to do so. But in the meantime, I would say as they're working through things, make sure that they're keeping abreast, signing up for all the various lists that may be available of doctors that may be taking patients. Hopefully, as some of those short-term remedies trickle in, there will be greater free time and hopefully greater availability of family physicians to take care of those patients.
Thank you so much for your time.
Thanks for having me today.
Dr. Lawrence Loh is the CEO and Executive Director of the College of Family Physicians of Canada.
This weather update is brought to you by Capital GMC Buick Cadillac. 22 model clear out is on now.
Weather specialist Ethan Williams joins us now. Some of us in the province today were hunkering down for fall, while others are still basking in what feels like summer.
Yeah, big temperature divide across the province today, Natasha. In fact, I'll show you right now what I'm talking about. Our current temperatures showing nearly a 20-degree spread between Leader in the west part of the province and Yorkton on the east side. Most of us kind of sitting somewhere in the middle of that right now. And those temperatures, especially in the southwest part of the province, well above average for this time of year. Maple Creek, 14 degrees above average. Saskatoon, Prince Albert, Moose Jaw, around 5 or so degrees. And then on the eastern side of the province, we were right around where we should be for this time of year. But here is why we've had such a divide. It all has to do with our upper atmosphere, our jet stream. To our east, we have a lot of unsettled weather, very cool weather in eastern Canada. In fact, snow falling in many portions of the Midwestern United States today, in southern Ontario. To our west, very warm weather, record-breaking conditions in BC, the Pacific Northwest, into Alberta. And we're kind of caught somewhere in the middle of this, as you could see with that big divide. But over the next couple of days here, this jet stream is going to shift and all of us will be somewhat closer together in terms of our temperatures. And then heading into the end of the work week, that jet stream shifts southward, that cooler air sinks with it. And it looks like we'll be feeling a little closer to normal, to where we should be this time of year, really everywhere across the province. But not much to speak of in terms of our systems map. Going through the next 24 to 48 hours here, really the only thing that we're watching is maybe a little bit of a shower moving through tomorrow afternoon and early evening in far northeastern Saskatchewan. And then really the next couple of weather systems we're watching, this low pressure system in the north, which could bring some showers and maybe flurries to the far north of the province. There is another system expected to make its way through central Saskatchewan Thursday into Friday, and that would actually be good news because we are very dry halfway through the month. This is where we are so far compared to the monthly normal. Regina, Yorkton have seen no precipitation this month. Saskatoon, Prince Albert, La Ronge, very dry conditions, and in fact, La Ronge only seeing about 1/10 of your monthly precipitation. Now, winds tonight, gustiest in the southeast part of the province, and then as we head through tomorrow and really the next couple of days, with nothing much happening at the surface level, there's really not much in terms of any winds, but that next system could bring through a little bit of gusty conditions as we head to the end of the work week. Wind chills tonight with just a little bit of wind, especially in southeastern Saskatchewan. We could be getting close to around -10, so keep in mind if you're going out early tomorrow morning, heading off to work. Regina, normal this time of year, around 10 degrees, and we will be quite above that for the next little while, with possibly some breezy conditions tomorrow. And as we head through the weekend, it looks like that's when winds could pick up a little bit. Saskatoon wants you to pay attention to overnight lows, because you won't be dropping much below 5 degrees these next few days. You should be around -2 for this time of year. Heading into the weekend, it looks like we have a little bit of a cool down, Natasha, so we will enjoy these nice warm days, because we don't really know what's around the corner, of course.
Thanks, Ethan.
You bet.
Mattel is paying tribute to Tina Turner by honoring her with a Barbie doll that looks just like her. The doll is part of the company's signature music series. It dons an outfit inspired by the music video for her hit song, What's Love Got to Do With It? This year marks the 40th anniversary of that tune. We'll be back after the break.
There are many people who elevate our community. CBC Future 40 will honor 10 Saskatchewanians under 40 making a difference. Nominate someone in your community today at cbc.ca/future40sk.
Waves of drones carrying explosives struck Ukraine's capital today. Blasts could be heard around Kyiv as terrorized residents ran for cover. One drone hit a residential building. Ukraine says at least 4 people were killed, including a pregnant woman and her husband. Officials say soldiers managed to shoot down a few of the drones. Ukraine's president alleges Russia had ordered 2,400 drones from Iran. Jeremy Hunt has wasted little time since becoming Britain's new finance minister on Friday. He plans to scrap his government's economic plan. It was introduced just 3 weeks ago.
This government will take the difficult decisions necessary to ensure there is trust and confidence in our national finances. That means decisions of eye-watering difficulty. But growth requires confidence and stability, which is why we are taking many difficult decisions starting today.
This decision will reverse nearly all of the mini-budget Liz Truss introduced at the end of September. That includes dismantling a plan for tax cuts worth $70 billion. The cuts were announced with no details of how her government would make up for the shortfall. Truss has been UK's Prime Minister for less than 6 weeks, but this and a series of other U-turns by her government have already fueled calls for her to step down. Ethan is back with a look at tomorrow's forecast.
And it is going to be a little on the chilly side, Natasha, especially in southern Saskatchewan. Tonight in Regina, we're going to be down to 2 degrees at midnight. Clear skies, a little bit of a wind. Means that by the time we wake up tomorrow morning, we'll have a little bit of a wind chill, around maybe -6 or so. Colder on the eastern side of the province, closer to -10. We'll be at 0 at 8 a.m. Winds really not going to change all that much as we head to the noon hour. We'll be around 10 degrees, warming up into the mid-teens. Saskatoon tonight around 7 degrees, clear conditions. South winds around 30 kilometers an hour. And we'll hit 8 a.m. tomorrow. Keep those sunny conditions around 5 degrees. It'll be warmer, as you can see, than it is in Regina. And then warming up to around 13 degrees by the noon hour with a little bit of cloud cover, Natasha.
Thanks, Ethan.
You bet.
That's it for us tonight. For news anytime, head to cbc.ca/sask. You can also subscribe to the CBC Saskatchewan YouTube channel. Glenn Reed will be back with more local news at 11. Thanks for watching and have a great night.